Hello everybody, welcome back to Fanblade. It is week 3 and we are going to finally get this thing playing and see how good or otherwise it is. Yeah, it's going to be unusual, whatever it is. There's nothing going to be normal about what happens today. That's the way I like it. Since the last video I have put a few more layers on the neck. It's looking pretty good. It's just ready for its final levelling. But we're going to have plenty of downtime from working on the body to do that, so I'm going to set this aside for now. And we'll talk about what's happening here. First off, I need to plug these holes, because I'm only actually going to be using a volume and a tone. So these 3 holes here can get filled, cut flush, then probably if there's any little gaps I'll fill those with epoxy, and then we'll sand the whole thing flat. The edge of the body here has got this awful big route around the outside of it. I think it looks cool, but practically speaking it's just uncomfortable to have your hand rested on that while you're trying to play. So what I'm going to do is carve that off. Just carve that straight off, round off this edge, so to make it nice and comfortable. I have to be a little bit careful though. As I'm rounding off, I can't go too far back this way, because where the bridge sits, that way around, that's coming right up to the back edge there, so that has to be perfectly flat right up to that point. And then I can gradually come in and scoop some out of there. The hand sits around about here, so that area is going to get quite a lot. And also where the body sits on the back, where you would normally put a belly carve on the back of an instrument there, well, this instrument sits more like that when you're actually playing it. So I'll be taking a little bit off this edge here, not too much, just enough, just a touch. And a bit off there, fill those, and then stuff the entire thing up to 120 grit so that the undercoat will stick to it properly, and then we'll talk about dipping it. It's worth noting at this point as well that I've been unable to get the output jack out. It is either glued in there, it's very firmly attached, so when it comes time to actually dip this guitar, there's going to be some interesting masking off to protect that, but yes, that's there and it's a problem, but we'll solve that problem when it's time. Alright, now if I was relicking this instrument, then I think I could probably be accused of going a little bit too far with it. But in terms of making it comfortable, that's a nice curve. That's very, very cool. It is a basswood body, or basswood, or however you want to pronounce it, potato, but it's very soft, so I'm going to, I think regular viewers will know what's coming. I'm going to seal it with some CA glue. And that'll soak in and make that nice and solid, so that in 20 years when I come across to actually decide to relic it properly, it's going to make my job harder. So that's a good thing. Yeah, so we'll seal this. I'll give it a couple of coats, won't take too long, and then I can sand the entire thing out to 120. I've already sort of started there, and yeah, it's just sort of checking the thickness of the red to make sure I'm not going to go all the way through it and just sand it all straight off. It's pretty thick, I'm not going to do that, so I can scuff it all up. I'll probably have to get into these edges by hand. That's absolutely fine. Then I can start masking things off and undercoat it ready for dipping. But that's a few stages ahead, so let's do this. I've got the body carved to my liking, and it's all scuffed out because paint does not like to stick to glossy surfaces. There's nothing it can really grab a hold of. So you rough it all up, and that'll make sure it's got plenty of grip. Yeah, good. Now, I have just realised that the neck, I'm not going to have any downtime to work on the neck, because the neck's going to be a part of this process because of that bit there. Which means that when we dip it, to keep the pattern going, it's going to need to be attached as it goes in the water, which means I'm going to have everything masked off, and it just makes sense then to have the whole neck absolutely finished and complete before we do this. Therefore, it's time to level the neck. Normally, this is fine. Leveling the frets is fine. I don't want to use a file on this area because that's going to dig into this area. I would normally level this with a radius sanding beam, but I'm not too sure about using that on the frets and then dragging metal filings back onto here. So to be honest, I'm not too sure how this is going to go. I think what I'm going to do is get the radius sanding block, stick some 400 grit sandpaper on it, and just see what happens. We're nearly completely masked off. There's just a couple of little holes left to go. For the screw holes, I'm going to just pop in some donor screws, just some sacrificial ones. Not too tight because the threads might not match up and I don't want to ruin the holes. They're just going to sit in there and stop any water getting in. There's a giant hole there for the grounding wire and also these two control holes. Now, I'm going to plug those with earplugs. Just cut a little bit off there, stuff it in the hole, and it'll expand to fill the gap, and just nothing can get in there. Aside from that, yes, I think we're just about ready to go. It's a beautiful day outside, it's sunny, there's no wind, so it's perfect for spraying undercoat. So we'll do that, and then I'll set about getting the tank ready. Now, it's just occurred to me that as I dunk the guitar in there, it's going to displace water and it's going to overflow. Basically, I'm going to get halfway in, the thing's going to overflow and all the paint's just going to run off the sides and not paint the second half of the guitar. Also, there's a couple of little bits of stuff floating in there, so I'm just going to scoop them and some water out, and hopefully we'll avoid a catastrophe. Now we're ready to mix some paint, so let's have a talk about what paints actually work and what paints actually don't. Now, I've tried some acrylic and doesn't work, doesn't float on water. I also tried some of this just cheap stuff, and I don't know what it is, but that doesn't float either, so not using that. I did have some success with getting nail polish to float. I use nail polish as, basically it's enamel paint, and I use it in my airbrush for doing details, and you can get all different colours of it, and it's really cheap, so that's a good thing. And I tried it on hand, it does float, but I couldn't get it to dip properly, and also I would need a ton of it. So, I've followed the advice of Tim McDougald. Now, he's a regular viewer and contributor and commenter on this channel, and he's got his own channel and his own stuff, Bad Apple Guitar Works, link in the description. And he put me on to a company called Magic Marble. They make specific paints for dipping. Now, unfortunately, they are well back-ordered. You cannot get any of their stuff. But I was lucky enough to find this in a local art supply shop, Easy Marble by Marabou, not sponsored. I paid, well, it's on special, but I paid for this. So, the colour scheme I want to go for is copper, so metallic copper and metallic purple and black. And I can just about do it with this kit. It doesn't have any metallic pigments in this, but I've got the yellow and the red, so I can mix to make an orange, and then add some copper pigment, some metallic pigment powder to it, and then I've got red and blue, which I can mix as well to make the purple, and then I've got purple metallic pigment. So, and of course black, and we're probably going to use just about all of it. So now, while we wait for the water in the garbage bin to settle, I need to start mixing up my colours here, and hopefully I can get them to where I like them, and then we'll see how they go. I've never done this before. This might be an abject failure. Let's find out. Okay, it's been about 24 hours to dry. It's not too bad. I've decided I quite like it. You know, the back is actually excellent. There are some odd bits where you can tell there's definitely a second layer of paint that's sort of stuck to it. Maybe some of the skin, the paint that was actually setting on top of the water kind of got on it. And so it's a little bit uneven. I did try in a little inconspicuous spot to try with a razor blade just to try and scrape it flat. No go. So what I'm going to have to do is slop on a super thick clear coat and then sand that back nice and flat. And of course my speed finish, whenever I've got to do something in a bit of a hurry, is of course super glue. So, masks on, gloves on, glue's on. Alright, that's taken quite some time. I have gone through my standard finishing procedure, which is to slop on 5 layers of CA glue, then scrape it back flat with a razor blade, then 2 more layers, and then I can start sanding. I have sanded it out to 1000 grit, and then I've come in with a little bit of 000 steel wool, and just buffed the surface with that, and now I'm going to use my favourite polish. Again, not sponsored, but it's pretty good stuff. Just rub it on, rub it hard, then rub it off. And it should come up with a really nice shiny gloss. It'll really make all this pop. The back looks spectacular. The back's going to look amazing around here as well. Very cool. And then of course, take it apart, take all the masking tape off, and put it back together again. And I'm kind of against the clock there because the band bridge pin is going to be here in 1 hour and 8 minutes, and I'd quite like to play this tonight. quite a lot of futzing about with the setup. I've got it all going. It's playing well, the electronics are good, and we're ready to go. Unfortunately, I've missed the deadline. The band has come and gone. In fact, all of that happened yesterday. And you will have noticed that this video is, in fact, a day late. So what I'm going to do now is very quickly go and assemble my band of clones and see if we can make some music on this thing. Well, that was a bit of fun. This thing's actually not bad. I think it sounds great. It plays kind of good. I played kind of strange. There's a weird thing that happens when you're trying to transition between the fretted and the fretless sections. Your brain is telling you you're one fret away, and I don't quite know why that is. It takes a little bit of getting used to. You probably heard a few mistakes. If you didn't, go back and listen to it again. You'll definitely spot them. But it feels good. Like you can slide from the fretted all the way up to the fretless. No problems. It feels good. It's just a matter of getting used to it, I think. Which I will be doing at a gig this weekend, and we'll see what my bandmates say. But yes, I suppose that is it for now. Thank you very much to everybody who has watched this series and given me your input and your suggestions and your helpful tips. They worked. Check it out. Excellent. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much for subscribing. And I'll see you next time I have some mad harebrained idea. Cheers.